Hello, this is Nat, and today we're looking at two games that in the last week have been the centre of two different controversies. First up is the cheerfully titled Hatred. The premise of Hatred is that you are a disgruntled, well-armed sociopath who sets out on slaughtering as many people as you possibly can before the police take you down. Because you hate. You hate everybody. You hate everything. That's your motivation. Go forth and kill. Hatred has had a bumpy ride so far, being taken off Steam Greenlight following public reaction to its trailer, going back onto Greenlight after Gabe Newell's direct intervention, and now it has received an adults-only rating. This will greatly limit where it can be sold, who can play it, and means that the seemingly misguided or naive hopes that the developers had of getting the game onto consoles are now all but over. I already have a lot of pixelated blood on my hands, whether from Koopas I've crushed to the noobs I've plasma grenaded in the face. I've done a lot of killing in my games. But there is something about the killing Hatred wants me to do that is uniquely wrong. Usually, a new idea, one which makes me uncomfortable, is an itch I just have to scratch. Normally, I'd be intrigued to find out what this could show me, to find out what I could get from this new perspective. But the only feelings I get from Hatred is a sense of being underwhelmed and repulsed. The game looks ugly, the game looks basic, the game could be reskinned in 100 different ways, and it would play the same. The only reason I can see for it to be skinned the way that it is that it would attract attention. It's Magical Wizard Wars without the crazy co-op. It's Spartan Assault on an empty map. It's the Expendables game, only even worse. Hatred is a game seemingly designed from the ground up with the explicit purpose of attracting attention, any attention at all. It is a game which looks otherwise so drab, so bland, and so terribly average that if it did not elicit such disgust with its premise and execution, then we would just ignore it. But Hatred did not want to be ignored. It screamed, "Look at me!" And so we looked, and we were disgusted, and I was a little embarrassed. You're doing it again, games, I thought. You're embarrassing yourself in front of the rest of the entertainment industry. If Hatred was a movie, it would get released and critics would tear it to shreds, and no one would go to see it. In the movie Falling Down, Michael Douglas plays William Foster, a man who similarly goes on a rampage through the streets of Los Angeles. But we are voyeurs, and the movie plays almost like a mystery as we try to piece together his increasing overreactions to otherwise minor but relatable frustrations. The movie does not empathise with Foster's actions, but it does want us to appreciate his motivations, as we learn that he is divorced, unemployed, and trying to get to his daughter's birthday. Instead, it's the detectives we find more relatable, as they are uncovering what's happening. Foster is a tragic figure for sure, but by the end of the film, we see him as the wrong answer to a terrible situation. Hatred revels in its violence and makes a mockery of free speech. Yes, Hatred has the right to be released. Whatever it is that it wants to say can be said. But the question it raises is why would someone want to say that in the first place? From the announcement trailer, the game has set itself up as an easy headline for media who want to attack video games. And I do not believe this is an accident for 1 minute. I doubt that the outrage comes as a shock to the developers at Destructive Creations. All eyes are on Steam now, to see how they react after Gabe Newell publicly defended its inclusion on the Greenlight program. Adults-only games are not sold on Steam. Also this week, Hotline Miami 2 garnered attention by being refused classification in Australia due to the inclusion of a rape scene. And then the developer encouraged anybody who wanted the game in Australia to pirate it. This is not the first time the developer has supported pirated copies of their game. Indeed, they released a patch for the pirated copies of the original Hotline Miami, while sympathising with the people unable to afford their game. The rape was presented as taking place in a movie during the game. Now, the Australian Classification Board may have questions to answer around the reasoning they used, as they specified occurrences which do not appear in the game as reasons for the refusal, such as thrusting, but it was the inclusion of the rape, whether implied or acted, which led to the refusal. Video games do not yet have a good history when covering sensitive subjects such as sexual abuse. The infamous Custer's Revenge is an often repeated example, but I feel that the game is given more coverage than it deserves. It was lambasted at release, went relatively unnoticed by customers, and is more often cited for what it is, just a terrible, terrible game. If we look at more recent examples, such as the trailer for the reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise, where the very suggestion that Lara Croft might have been about to be the victim of a sexual assault caused outcry and for the scene to either be removed, altered, or clarified depending on who you believe. Personally, I would have been interested to see where that was going, but I found the inclusion of it in the trailer a little off. The threat of rape is not appropriate advertising. I believe games can and will cover the most serious social issues as the medium matures and the stories it tells develop. As games become the prevalent entertainment industry, we should expect that they do. However, Hotline Miami is not our watershed moment. It is not a game set up to handle serious and brutal issues in this world of cartoon violence. I believe the controversy in Hotline Miami 2 is caused more by the developer turning things up to 11 for the sequel than actively pursuing controversy for controversy's sake. The rape scene is just a case of using rape for shock value and adds nothing to the game. Neither of these cases amount to censorship, as both games will be available for sale as they are, but where they are sold, and so who will be able to buy them, will be restricted by these moves. Games have the ability to address serious hard-hitting issues, such as rape and sociopathic murder, but these two games were never going to be the ones to do these topics justice. They lack the required nuance. Or they appear to be attempting to springboard to fame and fortune on the back of controversy for controversy's sake. We are dinoslippers USB. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to hear more.